The story I'm going to tell you today is called Levi's Stinky Pride. Levi had always been a humble fella. After all, he cleaned barns for a living. And his nickname was Stinky Levi. But what really made him lovable was his love for God. He loved God and he loved people. He loved helping people and doing whatever he could to make their lives a little bit better, a little easier. You might recall that he picked up a family off the streets, Leah and her son David, when they had nowhere to go and nothing to eat. Fed him his own lunch, including his very favorite blueberry pie. Took him home. They ended up staying in his house while he lived in a room above his barn. That's pretty humble. Well, as time went on and God continued to bless his business, Leah started helping with the books. Not only did she clean the house and make the meals while David took care of Benjamin, she started helping with the books. Levi was hiring more people because more business was coming in, and she made sure that they all got paid on time and the bills were taken care of and so on. And with her help, the business continued to grow. Well, Levi started feeling pretty good about himself. You might recall that there was a time in life when he wanted to feel important just once in his life. Well, lately he's been feeling pretty important quite a bit. So one day he goes to the bank to cash a check. There's a new teller there. She doesn't know Levi. And Levi says, "I'm here to cash my check." And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but Mr. Moneybags isn't in right now, and I don't have the authority to cash a check for somebody that I don't know." Ooh, Levi got irritated. He said, "I'm a busy man. I keep a lot of money in this bank. I can't keep running back and forth just till Mr. Moneybags is around. You tell that Mr. Moneybags that if you're not going to be cashing my checks, I'm going to do my business elsewhere." Well, the little girl behind the counter, she started to cry. He said, "What's the matter with you?" She said, "Sir, I just got this job. I need the money to take care of my sick parents. And I don't know what to do, because if I cash your check for you and I don't know who you are, I'll get fired. And if you tell Mr. Moneybags that you're unhappy with me, he'll fire me. You'll get me fired. And I just don't know what to do." Well, of course, Levi started feeling a little bit bad, and he backed off and he said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you. It'll be all right. You tell Mr. Moneybags I think he's got himself a fine new teller here, and I'll just be by later." But on his way home, the Lord reminded him of the story of Saul. Saul was a young man who grew up in Israel, and he was a very humble young man. And God called him to become king of the whole nation. He was so humble that when they had the ceremony to crown him king, they couldn't find him. Here he was hiding in the luggage. They pulled him out and they made him king. Well, after he became king, and after the Lord gave him some significant victories over Israel's enemies, particularly the Philistines, well, he started feeling pretty good about himself. In fact, he felt so large and in charge, he stopped listening to God. Well, that had some pretty bad consequences to it. And Saul's life ended up ending in a great deal of misery. He did a lot of things in life that he wasn't supposed to do. He irritated David sore, chased him all over the country. He killed people who were very innocent. He became a very evil, wicked man. And as I said a moment ago, died a miserable death. The thing was his pride. Pride grew up in his heart. As long as he was humble, God blessed and increased him. But when he got full of himself, that was his downfall. And the more Levi thought about the story of Saul as he walked along, the worse he felt, until finally he just stopped the cart, got down on his knees right beside the road, and said, "Oh God, I'm sorry. I don't know when or where I started thinking so much of myself that I would be rude to a little girl like that, a young lady just starting out her career. Lord, I can remember I've been a little short with people and a little bit rude recently, and I know that doesn't please you. Would you please forgive me, and would you help to remind me whenever I'm getting a little too big for my britches?" When Benjamin heard that, he reached down and nudged Levi on the shoulder pretty hard. And you know what Benjamin said? "Hee-haw!" Of course, what else would a donkey say? But it was his way of saying Benjamin was going to keep his eye on Levi too, and he'd let him know when he was getting out of line. Levi made it home. He picked some pretty flowers out of his garden and made a bouquet. Took them along with him back to the bank later that afternoon. And he gave them to the new teller. And he said, "I just wanted you to know how sorry I am for how I treated you earlier." And then he said to Mr. Moneybags, "You've got yourself a fine teller here. And if ever you don't have a job for her, I'll have one for her in my business." And Mr. Moneybags said, "Oh, not a chance." He said, "She's going to be working for me for a long time." And they lived happily ever after. Amen. Hope to see you again soon. But remember, not to get too big for your britches. That means not to think so much about yourself that you're not kind and loving to the people around you, especially your brothers, sisters, mom and dad. Be kind and be loving, and Jesus will continue to bless you too.